Okay, welcome back to KitaKasiKonteks episode 6 selepas raya.
Selepas raya, yes.
Macam mana nak raya? Okay.
Alhamdulillah, okay, kita di KL saja, tak adalah jam-jam panjang.
Stuck in Karak for 3 hours, 4 hours actually.
It's a commitment for you, you know.
Power through. Anyway, so today, or in this podcast, episode 6, we want to talk about AI,
Yes.
right? Artificial intelligence. Not technical AI, but the impact of AI
Yes. Yeah.
towards business and society in general.
Yeah.
I think, right? And just for context, AI ChatGPT came out in November 2022.
Yeah.
Right.
18 months now.
It seems like it's
Yeah.
been a long time,
Yes.
right? Tapi baru 18 months, tahun setengah. And the advancement from what it was then to what it is now is gone to version 4.4 now.
Yes.
4.5 coming, I think. Right. And it has changed the landscape of work.
Completely,
Completely.
yes.
But I would argue that maybe it hasn't really changed the job market yet. It's still a bit of a slow effect because maybe adoption is a bit slow at certain areas. But I think what we need to understand is how it will look like in the next few years.
Yeah.
And also how it will look like for our children, because we both have
Teenage children,
teenagers,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And now, I have these conversations with my son about what you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. He's coming to SPM soon, and I'm like, okay, not sure how to frame it for him. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so that's quite a broad starting point, I think. But let's just say the impact of AI, right? So that's what we want to say. I think I agree with you in that there's a delayed impact, right? Now, having said that, what we're engaging predominantly with today is large language models.
That's right.
Okay.
So that's your ChatGPT,
Which is the ChatGPTs and such like, right? And as the name suggests, chat, right? So it's conversational large language models, right? I've been using it since almost the inception of it. I use the paid version of it,
Sama.
yeah, because it pays for itself. and I have been increasingly learning how to prompt it in ways that more suit my work
Needs,
output,
right.
yeah, my needs, right, my work output and my needs, right, and obviously an engineer and a consultant. Now, I find that first of all, the quality of the output is changing and increasing, right? Now you also have this kind of support for Google as well, the inbuilt AI in the search engine or Microsoft Bing, right? And those are also quite useful now, I find, because you can ask broader questions and it can figure out what it needs to put together and then you can iterate with it, right? So this whole process of engaging with something that can do something quite efficiently at that level of efficiency, I think is a new experience for human beings. And I think that's very important.
And I think that a lot of people haven't got around to really exploring it. You can.
Yeah.
You know that if you sit down and start talking to it or prompting it, something will come out.
Yeah.
But because you know it, you kind of like leave it in the background until you need it. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, okay, if I need to write a proposal, or I need to write a fancy email, then I'll go to it. But you use it as a supplementary tool, rather than something that you would use to create new things. That's how I use it at this point in time.
Yeah.
Only now I'm thinking of how to prompt it better.
Yeah.
Right. Giving it context.
Yeah.
And then of a problem, I say, can you help me solve this problem?
Correct.
Right. So
Right.
it's a very interesting movement.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think there's still that delayed reaction in the industry.
Yeah.
Right. My view is that the AI has in the space of language.
Yeah.
So copywriting, writing emails, writing articles, and so on and so forth. That has kind of taken move forward.
Yeah.
Right? So I think a lot of people and I'm a copywriter as well.
Yeah.
Right. I don't need other copywriters now. Right. Not say I
Yeah.
don't need, but
You need less of.
I need less
you
of.
need less of.
Right.
And I think that's the first feel now of the disruption.
That's
so let's put it this way: if you've already hired a bunch of people, you may not be firing them, but you're definitely thinking of whether you hire any more.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. So when we look at these kind of changes, and it's happening with the people who are at the forefront of their skill or their competence, right? So like we are at the forefront of what we do. We lead teams, organizations. We would be considering how much of this now is replacing what would be the back end. And in some cases, we're thinking, well, amount of time I take to train someone up is taking out from the time I can produce, right? So what's the right balance between having headcount versus using the AI? You know, and I think those are the real. So I think within another 2 to 3 years, this will become already clear in organizational development planning. You know, what can you do with AI so that you don't have that much of a training burden, or you don't have that kind of headcount that used to be required before.
I think there's also a matter of skill in using.
Yeah.
So I still feel, and this could be my opinion, that I trust myself better to prompt the AI than somebody else, because I know exactly what I want.
Correct.
Right. And then when people hand me work, that is, when I look at people handing me work, and it's like, okay, you need to mesti pakai ChatGPT.
Yeah. Right.
And for some reason, I'm like, maybe.
Yeah. You could have done a bit better.
Right. You have that? So again, it questions the ability of the other person.
Correct.
Right? Because when it comes out berbunga and too nice, then this is not original work.
Yeah.
And I think there is a conversation around that in our heads that we have to get round to say that it doesn't matter if it's original or not.
Yeah.
As long as it's applicable. And it's useful, it's there.
Well,
what do you think?
Well, having said that, okay, let me put it this way. One of the examples is a very simple one. I was engaging with another president of an association, and she wanted to write an agenda for a day's workshop. Right, that would obviously be the work of a lowly person within the organization. You know, go draft out an agenda and then maybe check it. Right now, she did that, and she looked at it, just exactly that response, and she said, 2 minutes on the ChatGPT on my phone, I produced exactly what I wanted. You know, so then the question is, well, was that person at all useful, right? Because in a few key prompts, you've done the job already. You know, and it is what you want. It is what you want
because you prompt it to what you want, right?
Exactly, and what you want as an experienced person has developed over time.
That's right.
And you know, when you deliver it, because that's who's going to deliver it, right? You're going to deliver the session. You know that it will resonate with your style of delivery, the impact that you want, and so on and so forth, rather than trying to make someone else's piece of work fit within what you want. So I think it enhances people who have already got very high skill capability. For people at the lower end, it actually could take away because your training becomes limited.
That's true. So you create a kind of gap.
Huge gap, yeah.
Right. So what happens to these
graduates, basically?
Right, because they don't.
That's the next question.
Yeah, right. Because they don't have the experience of or the life experience of what to prompt.
Correct.
And what to look for.
Correct.
I think that moves us into this whole conversation of skills of the future.
Yeah.
Right. And coming back to my initial opening statement just now, what we tell our children to study.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, some kids are more advanced than others. My son is still, I'm not sure what to do. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Right. But we know for a fact that the traditional route is still needed. You still need to get a degree, right? Because if you don't have one, it's hard for you to get a job. That's the inbuilt parental thinking, I would say. Right.
Yeah. I personally have to say, I personally gone away from that already. I have personally gone away from that because I think if I take a page out of my own aerospace experience, I was trained as a stress engineer, which is a very technical job, doing stress calculations on aircraft for new designs, by the two masters that trained me did not have degrees. Because back then they had higher national diplomas in the UK, both British senior engineers, and that's where they ended their formal education and went straight into doing calculations.
I see.
You know, so I actually was trained by people with no degrees, and they led the field. You know, and it's because they have a matured industry over there. You have this diversity of people who are valued for their skills and competence, and not the paper that they carry.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So that's exactly. It's a good point.
Yeah.
So I think conceptually we agree.
Yeah.
It's the skills which is important.
Yes.
Right. But it's the paper that still gives you the credibility and access.
Only because the market is at that level of maturity. So actually the problem is recruitment and HR. That's actually the problem. And any CEO today trying to go into a new area of business development, evolve his business, change the landscape of clients that he has, will find HR as a major stumbling block.
That's right.
Right? So actually the first one that will be disrupted by AI would be HR, because an AI can do a better job at responding to a CEO's request for transformative requirements than a HR person in general today, right? Obviously, there's some really brilliant HR people, but you know, in general, you know, HR is the purview of remuneration, you know, occupational health and safety, recruitment, which are very traditional roles, which are all very replicable by AI.
That's right. So what do we tell our kids? Right.
Yeah.
Whatever field they go into, right? My view is that there are certain things that a human can do that AI will never be able to. Right. And it's those human qualities, or human intelligence, let's put it that way, that we need to build into this generation and add on to their skill sets, whichever way they go.
Yeah.
Basically, right. But having said that, I think there are certain other skills that are highly replicable that you want to avoid.
Correct.
So, for example, if you want to become, again, we talk about copywriting, right?
Yeah.
If my son were to say, I want to become a copywriter,
Yeah.
you know, maybe that's not what you want to do, or you have to become really, really, you know, you have to become the cream of that, which is, you know.
Well, maybe okay, so I think what may evolve is this: you will evolve the nature of the job, but not what the value of the job wants to create. Okay, so there's copywriting and then there's copywriting.
That's right.
Right. So the majority of copywriting, for example, is for documents or which are going to be used for general consumption. Right. You're not going to write John F. Kennedy's speech to move the nation, or you know, or something like that. So for those general purpose functions, no job there.
Yeah,
there's no job there.
Right.
But that function of a copywriter to produce something which communicates powerfully and strongly emotions and so on and so forth. Now, it could take a much more almost artistic direction, right? Because it's about human expression already, you know. And maybe we will expect a lot more from when we want to be moved. You know, we don't, like you said, you know, you can create a nice flowery piece of work, but you know it's done by AI, right? Because actually it doesn't move you. You know, so I think the expectations on the jobs will become different. The jobs, particularly that humans are still doing. So I wouldn't say the job of copywriter is gone. It's just today's job of copywriter no longer exists.
And that role will evolve.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. But having said that, do you think AI will go to a point where it can produce moving speeches that can actually be emotive in nature? Because it's constantly evolving, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, people will say that at the end of the day, as AI progresses, then the human intelligence has to keep on being a step ahead.
Yeah.
Right. Not ahead in terms of the body of work, but the soul of the work, I would say. Right.
Yeah.
But again, that soul, AI might be able to achieve that at some point and render us.
Well, I think what we don't have is enough benchmarks, because I think we've mentioned this in previous sessions before, that we actually, as a human race today, are very much engaged with non-productive activities, right? So if you look at a typical day of an office worker, probably 50 to 60% is purely administrative, right? Okay, so I think I personally believe that's why there's a lot of dissatisfaction in people who work in office environments, particularly large organizations, because a lot of the time actually is not really how shall I say, fit for stimulating what is the complexity of a human being. When we look at organizations, large organizations, the hierarchy of activities, right, from operations up to the C-level, right, the complexity of decision making, the amount of time you spend in engaged work to make decisions, should increase, right? Which means that lower down the organization, it's less and less. You're just doing, right? And some of the justification is part of your training and so on and so forth. But kaki tangan, yes, there you go. Yeah, hands and feet. Yeah. So, but this is in most cases for very large organizations, not necessarily efficient, because you see large organizations today being disrupted by small startups with technology, right? You know, so these small startups with more agile business processes. And what is agility? Agility is actually trying to make the most of your resources, right? So when you look at the startup sort of scene, everybody's engaged. Everybody understands to some degree profit and loss. Everybody is engaged in what is the next step in the product development, right? As opposed to large organizations, which is only that's right. Correct. So I think that disruption already shows you the trend of occupation, which means it's not going to continue like this large monolithic type thing. It is now going to become very much more dynamic and certainly more fluctuating in terms of the life and death of companies, right?
True. So that's interesting. So if you are at a kaki tangan level, what do you do? Right. So you have to reskill and upskill, which to the credit of the government, they've been talking about this for the past couple of years, right?
Yeah.
About reskilling and upskilling, especially post COVID.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, the government is obviously the biggest example of a kaki tangan organization, right? And hence why it's sometimes crippled by bureaucracy and levels of sort of governance derived decision-making processes, which hinders certainly efficiency, but are supposedly expected by the populace who expect decisions to be extremely well considered before any decision is made, right? Which in an entrepreneurial environment, it's do, fail, and then learn, and then do again, right? Yeah.
So my view is that if you know that you are in that band, right, then you really have to start thinking about reskilling / upskilling, right? But the question is into what? Right. The question is into what? Right. So my personal view is that you need to enhance your human intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. Your people skills, your relationship skills, your partnership skills, collaboration skills, speaking skills. Right. Because at the end of the day, my view is at the end of the day, even with AI, it's all about people still. Right. And the few of us left who are working, right, in this world where they say that you read the book, the world with no work. Right.
No, I haven't. No.
Where it says that with all this technology, there will be less and less people working. The productivity is almost the same, and therefore you go into kind of leisure.
I don't subscribe to that at all, unfortunately.
But it's an argument there. So what I'm trying to say is that what is obviously going to happen is that less people will be needed for the traditional jobs.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
That's obvious. Right.
Yes.
Whether those jobs get become different jobs, the evolution. We've seen this in different industrial revolutions, right?
Yeah.
When the internet came, it rendered certain jobs defunct.
Yeah.
Right. So that is definitely going to happen. So what do you do as an individual who is in the band where you are replaceable? How do you think about this, right? So like I said, my view is human skills, right? And then choosing a discipline, I would say, an area where you need to be above par, I would say, right? So that AI cannot replace you or do the job that you're supposed to do.
So I don't think we need to fear AI, right? The AI is going to replace me, right? I think that is a fear which is not helpful. Okay. Also, the AI is going to replace traditional jobs is a fear that is not helpful because jobs evolve, right? Occupations evolve. The whole idea of having an occupation also has evolved, right? So an entrepreneur who makes, now we have also entrepreneurs, makes 10 million ringgit from selling viral belacan in a jar has made enough for him to live for most of the rest of his life, right? Potentially, by a passive investment afterwards. Okay, if he lives within his means, right? A person working in a large organization in a traditional job may spend their entire life and not come up to that level, and only inherit a pension or an EPF, right? Which again will sustain a certain type of lifestyle, right? Now, you can make all that money up front now, and then just live your life, which means that you don't have to have this long career as a goal anymore. Now, having said that, you're still human, and a human being needs to be active and needs to produce, because I suppose both of us are Muslims. We believe there's purpose.
Of course,
right? Yeah.
But even no, you still have to be active every day.
You must have purpose, and it is part.
You can't just stay quiet, right? Stagnant, right?
well, yourself will not allow it without getting depressed.
That's right.
Right, without getting depressed. Now, having said that, now you see today, people in very large organization jobs for all of their lives. Later on, as their faculties start to fail, you see depression starting in, right? So you find that this, in Japan, for example, suicide rates at that level is quite high, right? So you can see if you've got really nothing to look forward to, how people who are Muslims and so on and so forth, we believe in the afterlife, and we go into prayer, we go into all of this, and then we go into family, right? But in an aging population, where family unit is very small or disintegrating, where religion doesn't play a role in sort of framing the future, you see depression set in at a very, very high rate, right? So I think it's against the human nature to not be productive, right? The question is productive on what? And I think that is the beautiful part about this. We can now be productive on many more things that do not require the doldrums of kaki tangan work. So now I'm more excited about people doing things which before they would never have done, and we would have never seen these potentials from these people.
True. It's like a podcast.
It's like a podcast, yeah.
Right. Anybody can do it now.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
So with technology, there's new opportunities.
Yeah.
Right? But again, I still come back to the point of, and initially, right, how do we make sense of this? I mean, the whole movement of technology. And I'll give you an example. You're in the aerospace industry. Right? You're talking about drones.
Yeah.
Right. So once drones move into the delivery space, what happens to all the Grab delivery boys?
Sure.
And women, of course. Right?
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah.
Right. So there will be an evolution there. This is inevitable. It will happen. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Yes.
Right. So that whole, and this is the speed of change, right?
Yeah.
I think 5 years ago, the whole Grab delivery occupation did not exist.
Correct.
And it was created.
Correct.
And then maybe in the next few years, that will not exist anymore, and something else will be created, right? So basically, the tenet is just everybody has to be dynamic, right? And not be stuck in the old mindset of this is the job that I do, and this is the skill that I have, and this is going to be what I do for life.
Sure.
Right. Sure. You agree with that?
So the whole world is going through something called dematerialization, which means that the mobile phone is a perfect example. The amount of physical material that you had to dig out from the earth to create the number of products that will give you the functionalities of what the mobile phone today can give you, camera, computer, and so on and so forth, right? Would fill my house easily, for one mobile phone, right? It will cost you billions of dollars, and now can cost you up to, your latest one, few hundred ringgit even, right? For the same sort of facility. So that movement is called dematerialization. It means less material, but more value is coming up, right? And what you talked about, the drones and so on and so forth, actually, the Grab driver, for example, owns his car, right, and can only drive X amount of hours a day before he's completely fatigued. Then the car, which may not be fatigued, has to sit parked. Idle. But a robot driver can keep going, right? What does that mean? So let's say a driver can only drive for 8 to 10 hours a day effectively, and there are 24 hours in a day, right? So he's only about 1/3 utilizing that asset. But a robot driver would drive that asset 3 times more, let's say, like
the whole 24 hours,
the full 24 hours, right? Only stopping to refuel, which means you need fewer cars in the robot world than you do in the manned driving world.
That's right.
So again, dematerialization is happening. Okay. So as dematerialization happens, we need to dig up less and less material. Those occupations which are to do with, like for example, mining and so on and so forth. Question is it more about recycling material for the use of these dematerialized products, right? Or digging up new material, right? So it's probably shifting towards recycling those materials, right? And that requires more inventiveness, right? I think that entire movement, and you can see it also with the younger generation now, the dematerialization, things like no-brand products now are becoming more popular, right? There's a movement now towards that I don't need to be materially wealthy to be able to show that I am of value to society. I can now become virtually wealthy, that means followers and so on and so forth, and travel the world and have a rich life and be a richer person than one with billions of dollars. That's right. So this change in value system is following this dematerialization trend, right? Which means, why do you need a job to last you a lifetime of basically buying one house, a bigger house, another bigger house, a bigger car, and so on and so forth. That entire track might become completely irrelevant going forward. And when it does, people will say, I'll earn for what I need.
That's right.
Right? And you have the internet today. If I've got a good idea, I can go on the internet, crowdfund it, and I can get capital from anywhere in the world. I don't need to go to my local bank and justify it to that bank manager who may not understand what I'm doing traditionally. Yeah. Right.
So the change of technology creates a change in how we live our life.
Yes.
Right. So we can't be afraid of the technology. We just need to embrace how it changes the way we live.
Yes.
Right. And our mental models have to shift as well.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And as long as that happens, I guess we'll be okay.
Yeah.
But we're in this track of, one job for the rest of the life, one skill.
Yes, one skill.
That's right, right?
Yeah.
One skill for the rest of my life. Then you'll be caught.
Yeah, I think it's more one job for the rest of your life. Because I think one skill, if you think about making samurai swords, that's a very specialized skill. And it takes a lifetime to master.
Yes.
Now, if you talk to a samurai sword master, he will say he speaks about the sword making as almost a religious experience.
That's right.
Right? And as they improve in their abilities as they go on, they feel that these swords now take on life of their own, right? Because now they're able to imbue the life spirit into the swords, right? That journey doesn't stop. That one, I think, can continue. That becomes an art, it becomes an expression of human endeavor, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But creating consumer products, plastic toys, and so on and so forth, right? Yes, that will become meaningless, right? And therefore, when we say skill, I think skills can be timeless. They can get deeper and deeper and deeper. But job titles and job descriptions, right? Which is what, engineer, doctor, lawyer, right? You put AI under all of those, you might change those titles quite like, a lawyer could be justice giver because the lawyer part is actually just done by AI, Right?
And even the whole judiciary system might change as well.
Completely, yeah. It might be, AI have you checked the AI system to see whether or not your case precedents have been met? Things like that. Right? Something you don't do now, right?
Brave new world out there. Right?
It is, yeah.
So
exactly.
It's really about changing mental models, I guess.
Absolutely.
Changing your mindset.
Absolutely.
Right. Towards what the future
and be more value based.
That's right. Be more value based.
Yeah.
And have purpose.
That's
right.
Which doesn't sound very complicated.
No.
It's like saying ESG versus sustainability. You can you ask a child what is sustainability, they can describe sustainability to you. You ask them what is ESG, they can't.
Not just
right.
children.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah.
Yep. So again, I think the message that I think of this podcast, we talk about AI, but other technologies as well, because AI is kind of like the base, right, of what is powering everything. The message is embrace. Yeah,
embrace as we always have as human beings.
Always, right. And as long as we are in that mode of embracing, in that mode of, I would say, continuous learning, right, we should be safe. Right, and quality of life will improve. Right, it's definitely we can see that over the evolution of man. Right.
Muslims call it ibadah.
That's right.
That is the definition of ibadah.
So so AI. That's our take on not AI, on impact.
The impact of
AI and other technologies as they come. We are in the age of the speed of change is the highest that human evolution has ever seen.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So it's a very exciting time. At KitaKasiKonteks, our message is be ready to embrace the future, right? And be dynamic and be productive. No, be purposeful.
Be purposeful.
Right. And there's a lot of I would say new opportunities.
Absolutely.
Right.
Get excited about it.
All right. So that wraps up KitaKasiKonteks episode 6. Right. And we'll come back next time with another topic to try and give you context as usual. Thank you.
Thank you.